I'm a big fan of extreme sports games. Stuff like the early Tony Hawk games, 1080 Snowboarding, the SSX series, hell, even Jet Set Radio were a big staple in my gaming repertoire while growing up. As I've gotten older, I start to look back at all the stuff that I've missed in the genre, and one of the more highly acclaimed titles in that catalog is the Sega Saturn exclusive snowboarding game, Steep Slope Sliders. Released in late 1997, Steep Slope Sliders is an arcade-style snowboarding game developed by Cave. And yes, it's that Cave. At one point, they made games that weren't 2D shooters, and this certainly won't be the last time we see them on this show. The game has you compete in a number of different snowboarding events, but there isn't really a set structure to follow. There's 7 courses to carve your way through. Each one has 2 objectives: to get the fastest time and to set the highest score by performing tricks. Before you hit the slopes, you gotta select your boarder. While they don't have any differences in terms of statistics until later on, each boarder has their own unique trick set to learn. As you unlock more boarders, stuff like speed, maneuverability, and trickability will come into play. Once you're all set, it's time to ride. As you begin your run, you'll realize the slopes are pretty barren. Your trek down the mountain is strictly a solo affair, no AI opponents to contend with here. That's perfectly fine though, as the environments can be plenty challenging on their own. Since you're only looking to complete a time trial and a trick attack, it'll require multiple playthroughs of each course to find the perfect line, and to find the best places to trick off of to get a high score. Of course, to be able to do any of these challenges, you need controls that are up to the task. But before I do that, I have some comparisons to make. This game came out around the same time as another high-profile snowboarding game, Cool Boarders 2. Seeing how the future played out, you can see which one clearly came out on top, but playing both of these titles today, it's really difficult to see why. In the controls department, Steep Slope Sliders is the clear-cut winner, no questions asked. By comparison, Cool Boarders 2 plays like dog shit. How so? Well, let's take a look. Controlling your boarder in Steep Slope Sliders is incredibly intuitive. The way you carve a path and how smooth it feels is insanely satisfying. This can also be aided by the shoulder buttons, which allow you to spin in the air and to help you with more hazardous turns on the ground. The trick system is just as simple to pull off. You only have one trick button. Hitting the trick button with a direction on the D-pad performs a trick. It's that easy. It can leave a lot to be desired, but what's important here is that it works and it feels great. There's also a flip button you can use to add some flash to your stunts. All these in combination with being able to spin with the shoulder buttons make this one of the easiest trick systems to learn in an extreme sports game up to this point. From my own personal experience with Cool Boarders 2, I found the controls to be just really stiff and unintuitive. Memorizing all those button combinations for tricks just never sat right with me. Nothing wrong with memorizing button combinations, as we would see them put to excellent use in 2012's masterful SSX reboot. But given the time these 2 titles were released in, Steep Slope Sliders went the easier way and holds up way better for it. The presentation can be hit and miss with Steep Slope Sliders. The environments come off as rather bland, even when compared to its contemporaries, but it's clear that the developers had their priorities in order when it came to the controls. There's still plenty fun to be had in these stages though, stuff like dense forests and small towns to ply your way through. The graphics themselves line up with what you've come to expect from a 3D Saturn title. They're not super great, but they more than get the job done. One of my favorite things about this game though is the secret unlockables. There's plenty of extra borders and tracks to unlock as you play through. Some of these characters even excel in certain areas, like the Racer, who can go super fast but is unable to perform any tricks. One of the more bizarre secrets in this game is a minigame called Steep Slope Shooters, a rather obtuse top-down shooter. You dodge trees and shoot other mountain goers as you attempt to exact revenge on your dead brother. Yeah, this minigame has a dumb little story to go along with it. It's great stuff. All these years later, Steep Slope Sliders holds up really well for an early 3D extreme sports game. If you want to track it down, complete US copies range between $20 to $30 nowadays, but as always, the Japanese version is cheaper. The Sega Saturn really doesn't have a large catalog of extreme sports titles, so it's pretty nice that we got a great one with Steep Slope Sliders.